Purchase the debt of the Kingdom of Valdris. All of it. Every coin owed to every creditor from here to the southern sea. I want it done before morning.
The Kingdom of Valdris had not always smelled of dust and quiet desperation. There had been a time, so the old men whispered in taverns, when its markets overflowed and its coffers gleamed. But kingdoms, like men, could be broken slowly, and Valdris had been breaking for 20 years. King Aldric had sent his last petition 3 months ago. The reply had not come from another kingdom or a neighboring lord. It had come from somewhere far older, far richer, far more terrifying. The Kingdom of Aeloria had existed for 10,000 years. It had outlasted empires, survived the breaking of stars, and accumulated wealth so vast that even its servants wore rings of moonstone. Its prince had never once concerned himself with the problems of human kingdoms. He had read the petition from King Aldric of Valdris 4 times, not because the debt figures required rereading, not because the terms were complex, but because of the detail buried in the 3rd paragraph, almost as an afterthought, that the king's eldest daughter had recently returned from her education abroad. Her name was Elara, and the moment he read it, his chest did something it had not done in 23 years of dreams. It recognized her. It had begun when he was 8 years old. A dream, always the same dream. A girl in a meadow he had never visited, in a kingdom he had never seen, laughing in a way that sounded like something the world had forgotten how to do. He had been patient for 23 years. He had searched in the quiet ways that princes are permitted to search, through traders and travelers and whispered intelligence. And then the petition had arrived and her name had been written in ink, and patience had become something else entirely.
Purchase the debt of the Kingdom of Valdris. All of it. Every coin owed to every creditor from here to the southern sea. I want it done before morning.
His senior advisor said to him, "Your Highness, buying an entire kingdom's debt overnight suggests an urgency the council may wish to understand." And he said, "I am not asking the council to understand. I am instructing it to act." They left without another word. They had learned in the centuries of serving him that when Prince Aerion's voice dropped to its quietest register, he was the furthest from negotiation. In the castle of Valdris, 30 leagues and an entire world away, Princess Elara was also awake at midnight. For 3 months she had written to creditors, careful letters filled with numbers, proposals, and patience. None of it mattered. The debt was too large, the kingdom too weak, and time had run out. She loved her kingdom, every worn street, every struggling merchant, every hungry child. She carried them all in her heart. That was why her father's news felt less like a crisis and more like a sentence.
The Fey Prince, he has purchased all our debts. Every one. From every creditor, he holds this kingdom in the palm of his hand.
What does he want?
You.
She asked, not as a bride. He said he was specific. He called it an advisorship. Elara replied, "No king purchases a kingdom for an advisor." King Aldric, broken, quietly said, "I am sorry, Elara. I tried every other way." Elara, after a long pause, said, "I know, Father. I know you did." She stood at the window until the city fell silent. Then she made the choice she had known all along she would make, because it was who she was. 3 days later, the golden carriage of the Fey Prince arrived at the gates of Valdris at precisely the hour he had stated in his single, brief, devastating letter. The citizens of Valdris had turned out in numbers that surprised everyone, including themselves. Word traveled fast in a city with nothing to do but wait. Nothing in Valdris had ever looked like this. Nothing ever would again. She had dressed deliberately. If she was to be presented like a negotiated asset, she would at least look like a queen. The entire courtyard went silent. Even the wind, it seemed, stopped to look. He was, as the old text described all Fey royalty, simply too much. Too tall, too beautiful, too present, as though he occupied slightly more of the world than a person was technically meant to. And then he saw her. He had thought he was prepared. He had spent 23 years dreaming of her face. He was wrong. Nothing prepares you for a dream standing in morning light, real and unimpressed.
Prince Aerion of Eloria, Valdris receives you. King Aldric, Valdris is more beautiful than I had understood. I look forward to knowing it better. Princess Elara,
Your Highness,
the light favors your beauty this morning.
and your presence honors the day, my prince.
She had expected cruelty, or at least condescension. What she hadn't prepared for was the way he looked at her, as though she wasn't a transaction, but something impossible he had finally found. The formal terms meeting lasted 2 hours. What no one in the room had anticipated was that Princess Elara would take over from her father within the first 20 minutes. She had studied every line of his offer. She had found 3 clauses that were intentionally favorable to Valdris, so favorable they could only have been deliberate, and she wanted to understand why. It was not the answer she had expected. She had expected deflection. She filed his response carefully in the part of her mind where she kept things she needed to return to. She had made him almost smile. He had not almost smiled in 17 years.
You don't have to be clever with him, Elara. Just be careful.
I am being both.
The terms were signed an hour later. The Kingdom of Valdris' debt passed entirely into Fey hands, and the eldest Princess of Valdris was to depart for the Crystal Palace of Aeloria within 3 days. She had 3 days. 3 days to say goodbye to everything she was and prepare to step into everything she didn't yet know. He found her at the castle wall as the afternoon deepened into gold.
You are afraid.
I am cautious. There is a difference.
What would make you less cautious?
The truth, usually, though it's rarer than people claim.
He said, I don't intend to harm you. You'll have more freedom here than anywhere you've been, and I had reasons for choosing you that I can't yet explain. She said, then I suppose we understand each other. They stood like that for a moment, not quite together, not quite apart, looking at the city she was leaving. And she found, to her own surprise, that his presence beside her was not what she had feared it would be. She noticed his hand first. For one unguarded moment, she saw what he looked like when he wasn't being a prince. He looked, she thought, like someone who had been carrying something heavy for a very long time and was trying not to let it show. He said, I will see you in 3 days, Princess Elara. I hope the journey does not tire you. She replied, I imagine the journey will be the least challenging part of this arrangement, Your Highness. That night back in his palace, Aerion did something he had not permitted himself to do in many years. He allowed himself to feel it, just for the length of a single breath, the terrifying, consuming, impossible relief of it. She was real. She was exactly as the dream had always shown him. She was here. And then he remembered the prophecy. The prophecy, written 900 years ago by the seer Morvael, had been sealed in silver and given to him at his coronation with 3 words. Find her first. She would be the destruction of the Fey realm, or its salvation. Only one heart would decide. The prophecy had haunted his father's reign and shaped his own. For 23 years he had believed that finding her first meant securing the realm's salvation. He had chosen to trust the dream, to believe the girl in the White Flower Meadow was not destruction, but the opposite. He had chosen it for 23 years, and would choose it again tomorrow. In another part of the palace, Lord Caven was already aware that the prince had moved. He had known the prophecy for 40 years, and spent them ensuring the girl would never reach Aeloria, the prince, or the fate that threatened his ambitions. The morning of departure arrived the way difficult mornings always do, too quickly, and with no ceremony adequate to the moment.
If anything happens that you did not consent to,
Father, I know how to take care of myself. You taught me that at least.
I taught you better than the kingdom deserved.
He did not watch her say goodbye. That, she would learn later, was the first thing he gave her that she hadn't asked for. The carriage lifted from the ground 20 minutes outside the city, the dragons ascending on silent wings into the cloud layer, and the Kingdom of Valdris fell away beneath them. She didn't cry. She had promised herself she wouldn't, but she let her eyes stay on the receding patchwork of Valdris's fields for longer than was probably dignified.
You can say something if you want.
I was thinking that you are braver than any person in that courtyard was giving you credit for.
That is a kind thing to say.
It was an observation, not a kindness. Our fates are entwined, Elara. Trust me. We will face this together.
They flew for 4 hours. And when the clouds broke and Aeloria appeared above them, all crystal light and gold and impossible architecture, she heard herself make a sound that was not quite a word, and he watched her see it, floating palaces, gold leaf forests, moonstone rivers, for the first time. He watched her composure unravel at beauty, the same way his had years ago, when he first dreamed of a girl laughing in a field of white flowers. She turned from the window and found him already looking at her. Neither of them spoke. Outside the crystal carriage, the most beautiful kingdom in existence waited, full of secrets, danger, and 10,000 years of things neither yet knew they would need. The Crystal Palace of Aeloria had hosted many guests in 10,000 years, but none like Princess Elara of Valdris, who looked at it not with ambition or greed, but with the quiet, disarmed reverence of someone seeing proof that beauty was real. He descended just behind her and positioned himself, without making anything of it, between her and the assembled court. She would not know Lord Caven's name for another 3 days. She would not understand what he was for another 2 weeks. But she noticed him. She filed him in the part of her mind she kept for things she needed to return to. He walked beside her through the entrance hall and said nothing. He had learned somewhere in 23 years of dreaming about this moment that sometimes the best thing you could give someone was the space to feel a thing fully. She stopped. She couldn't help it.
It's real. I thought perhaps it had been exaggerated.
It is not, I have checked.
Have you?
Several times, it remains this impossible.
He walked her to her chambers himself. The court would have opinions about that too. He found he didn't particularly mind. She asked, you said there were reasons for choosing me you aren't ready to explain. He said, yes. She asked, when will you be ready? He said, when I'm sure the truth won't make you leave before you've chosen for yourself.
I should tell you, I don't frighten easily.
I know. That is part of why I chose you.
Her chambers were almost exactly what she had imagined the inside of a dream might look like. She stood at the window for a long time. The kingdom below her was unlike the one she had left. Older, richer, more alive. Somewhere within it stood a prince who had bought her kingdom and looked at her as though she were what he had always been searching for. She sat on the edge of the most extraordinary bed she had ever seen, in the most extraordinary room she'd ever entered, in a kingdom she had no map for, thinking the same thing she always did when everything felt too large and strange to hold. The next morning, she found a study waiting for her, fully appointed, fully stocked with relevant documents. Someone had anticipated what she would need. She had a feeling she knew who.
I thought we'd start with the trade agreements. Your kingdom has been losing revenue there for years.
You noticed that?
I studied Valdris before I bought its debt.
Most people would study it for leverage.
I am not most people.
They worked for 3 hours. It was, by a significant margin, the strangest 3 hours of her life. And also, she thought guiltily, among the most interesting. Elara Said, the problem isn't the tariff rate, it's the category. These aren't luxury goods. Taxing them as such has depressed the northern market for a decade. Lower the tier and you gain revenue through volume. He said, no one on my council saw that. She said, Perhaps they've been looking at the same page too long.
I'll have it reviewed.
Just like that.
You were right. The appropriate response is to admit it.
You're the first person in power to tell me that in 3 years.
The morning ended without either of them noticing. They spoke of tariffs, trade agreements, and border economies, and then suddenly it was midday light through the crystal windows, and 3 hours were gone.
Tomorrow, if you're willing, I'd like to show you the observatory.
Why?
It's something I've wanted to show you for a very long time.
You speak as though you know me.
It feels that way to me.
She stood in the doorway long after he had gone, thinking of a man who said he was patient as though patience were a choice, not a burden. And she wondered what he knew about her that she did not yet know he knew. In a private meeting room that did not appear on any official map of the palace, Lord Caven was also considering the morning's developments.
He found her. She's already at his side. Faster than expected. He spent 20 years searching. Once he found her, he was never going to wait. Then neither can we.
They agreed not to move against the prince, as the court would never follow that, but rather the girl, to make the court afraid of her and remind them of the prophecy. Let the fear do the work, and ensure that protecting her cost Aerion something he cannot afford to lose. The report reached him at the 4th hour. Someone had been asking questions in the lower palace. Questions about the prophecy. Questions about the human girl. Questions careful enough to have no author. He asked, who else knows she is here besides the court that received her yesterday? The official said, the full palace staff, Your Highness. Aerion said, find out who is asking about the prophecy. Ensure that Princess Elara's chambers are assigned the best available guard without alarming her. He had known this would happen. He had known it the moment he purchased the debt, the moment he sent the letter, the moment the carriage descended toward Valdris. He had brought her here anyway. He stood outside her door for the length of one breath. Then he turned and walked away, because there were things that needed to be done before he could afford to simply be a man standing outside the door of the person he had been searching for all his life. She wrote in her journal that night. She wrote about the palace. She wrote about the impossible living crystal light and the gold leaf forests and the sensation of walking through a place that was more alive than any building had a right to be. Somewhere in the crystal corridors of the most beautiful and dangerous kingdom in the world, a prince was reading names. Somewhere below the palace, 2 men with cold intentions were moving their pieces forward.